Hey, Marisa. The audio should pick it up because of the other mic on the side.
Looks like
Let's just leave it where it is. We'll play by ear. We have to scramble up there and do that whole duck and tuck kind of thing, okay?
First test.
Get your pose right over there. Get a shot of you. Outside of the, yeah, there you go, right there. Work it, work it. Camera loves you. You own the floor. There you go. Thank you.
All right, technical difficulties is the name of the evening. Lovely. Good evening. My name is Bill Dunlap. I don't have my presentation, so I'm going to have to wing this just a little bit. But several of us were talking a while back and realized that the only way the Mars Society had heard about Mars One was from Baz, which is wonderful, but we realized you actually didn't know much of anything about any of the candidates. And so we asked the Mars Society to let us come and introduce ourselves to you. Okay, so I'm going to skip all the stuff that I didn't, that I can't look at the facts and figures. There are 705 candidates still left in the selection process that sometime soon are going to get interviewed and narrowed down and eventually become the Mars One trainees. Of those 705, I do remember 59% right now are male, 41% are female, which in the end it's going to be exactly 50-50, 2 on the team. The other stats I just can't tell you off the top of my head. I'm sorry. So, I will introduce to you, seated here first is Max Fagan. He is a master's candidate in aerospace engineering at Purdue University.
The Boilermakers.
Boilermaker. And he was EVA engineer of Crew 99 at the Mars Desert Research Station. Next to him, First Lieutenant Heidi Beamer, who was also on Crew 99 at the Mars Desert Research Station. She was the XO and chief geologist. You have a bachelor's?
I do.
In chemistry from Virginia Military Institute. She's a chemical defense officer in the Army. Next to her, Sonia Van Meter, boom, managing partner of Stanford Caskey, which is a political consulting and opposition research firm, offices in Chicago and Austin. She has a degree in sociology from Georgia State, did some graduate work in political sociology at UT Austin, and then decided she liked politics better than school. Now the consultation firm. She asked me to tell you that she's an incredible space enthusiast, follower of Carl Sagan and Neil deGrasse Tyson's philosophies, and officially ordained high priestess in the cult of Gene Roddenberry. Next down the line, Cody Don Reeder. He's obviously young. He was a little upset that his bio didn't have so many wonderful things for older people, but I find it fascinating that for 12 years, as young as he is, for 12 years he's been a beekeeper. He's with that. I have a thing for bees, I don't know. He is a mechanic. He's going to school right now at Westminster College. Student of physics? Physics. Nice. Next to him, I hope I pronounce her name right, Etsuko Shimabukuro?
That's right, that's right.
Wow. I've been practicing that. She is Japanese, currently living in Mexico, studied archaeology at Miji in Tokyo, has a bachelor's of science in computer science, worked in IT for 20 years, and for reasons unknown to me, decided that she wanted to do something different. Now she is a chef manager in Japanese gastronomy in Mexico.
Okay.
And when I was putting this panel together, one of the things that's very important to Mars One is diversity. There are almost 300 Americans left in the 705 candidates. But our panel, Etsuko was just about the only person I could find who was not American who could be here and be on the panel. So she's here to represent the diversity of the candidates. There's much more diversity than you see here. We're not a scientifically representative sample. Next to Etsuko is Kay Radzik-Warren. Has a bachelor's of architecture from California State Polytechnic University. She's a project manager, a freelance illustrator and cartoonist, and I've seen some of her work. She's fantastic. She and several other Mars One candidates, including Cody, I forgot to tell him that, in May of this year went to help with the refit of the Mars Desert Research Station. And last, on the very end, last but not least, is Randall Taylor. Do you prefer Randall or Randy? Randall? Okay. And unfortunately, I didn't get to consult you on your bio very much. You have a doctorate in geology.
I'm wrapping it up right now.
Wrapping up his doctorate in geology. Not yet a doctor.
3 months.
Nice. And that's at Louisiana State. And that's really all I know about you.
Well, my background is in hydrogeology primarily, but I've had diverse jobs in geology for the past 25 years.
Turn the mic on.
Mike.
But you can pass it on. So just like having a diverse background in geology, in mining, and resource evaluation, mineral resources and water resources, contaminant remediation, that sort of thing. And writing my PhD right now. So sorry.
And that's going to lead into the first question that I want to ask, but before I do, we 8 are representing 705 candidates. There are a whole lot more of us in the audience. I've been seeing them all the last couple of days. If you're one of the candidates still, would you please stand up, raise your hand, look around, and say hi. Okay, so the question, and I guess we'll just pass these 2 microphones along because I really want to hear sort of what everyone has to say about it. Incidentally, this is you guys get to know us, so.
Speaking of which, who are you?
I'm nobody special. I'm Bill Dunlap. I went to college at a very young age when there was no internet and it was hard to figure out what NASA wanted in an astronaut, so I didn't manage to do it, which I'm telling the Mars One people works out really good for them because I've been a mechanic for 20 or something years, and that's one of the things Mars One is really going to need. Mechanics and doctors and mechanics, and I got the mechanics covered.
You're writing this down, Baz, yeah?
You're going to need 2 mechanics.
So anyway, anyone with questions, be ready to ask them. But to get the ball rolling, since Randy was telling us about his geology, can you guys kind of pass the mic around and tell our friends here in the audience, what are you looking forward to doing on Mars most? And I want 2 answers. I want science-wise, because I'm guessing Randy probably wants to do some geology, but also something non-science that you're looking forward to.
Go ahead.
Science-wise, the thing I'm looking forward to most is the prospect of industry that comes out of Martian resources. I am fascinated by the idea of of steelworks on Mars, of the ability to build industrial machinery out of Martian regolith. The fact that Martian regolith offers so much for that prospect is what excites me most scientifically and engineering-wise about actually being on Mars. On a personal level, I'm looking forward to the hiking. I grew up in Colorado, and I love hiking 14ers, and Olympus Mons is obviously a bit taller than that, and it's probably not going to be conquered. Probably not going to be conquered immediately, maybe not even in my lifetime. But hiking around on Mars is personally what I would be non-scientifically looking forward most to.
I think scientifically, my passion has always been kind of Martian geology. In 2010, I worked at NASA Ames with Dr. Natalie Cabral, who was involved in the Spirit Opportunity. And I worked closely with finding Martian gullies and following the water to find life. And so I'm really interested in seeing, is there still a liquid water table on Mars? Is there still water beneath the surface? Is the gullies that we're seeing on the craters that move from the seasons really liquid water, or what is it? So scientifically, that's what I'm looking for. Non-scientifically, this has been a dream of mine since I was 7 years old. Baz and I have the same story. We looked at the Sojourner rover roving around, and I saw the newspaper article the day my dad told me about this. And since then, it was we need to send people, and eventually it turned into it's going to be me. So just the fact of accomplishing this goal of mine, and not only for myself, but for humanity and alongside other people, that'll be kind of the thing I'm looking forward to the most on Mars.
I would have to follow that. As Bill mentioned, I don't have a tremendous amount of experience in science or tech or medicine. So I wish I had a more dazzling answer to what I want to do, what I want to see, what I want to accomplish, scientifically speaking, on Mars. As an utter layperson, I think what I'm most interested in now is just seeing how close we got it. Based on the things that we have figured out from the rovers and from the satellites that are out there and all of our technology that we've sent to Mars so far, are our current assumptions about the planet correct? And I know that is a huge blanket statement, and that's exactly where I'm going to leave it. Personally, I gotta be honest, I'm having a hard time imagining past the first few steps. Yeah, let's do those first few steps and then keep going from there.
We'll drive off that bridge when we get there, huh? Well, you think you got little science experience. I grew up on a farm. So, yeah, the first thing
Use the mic.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little quiet. The first thing I'd like to do when I go to Mars is grab a shovel and go look for some frozen fishies. Yeah, you see those craters with the nearly pure ice in them. Go out and I would love to look at a piece of that ice and see if there's any like little critters frozen in there. I'd love to go find some life. Non-scientifically, I think I would love to hold this a little closer. I think I would love to go fix up the Spirit rover. I mean, I remember it got stuck in some sand a few years ago and has been stuck there ever since. And there was a big thing on Facebook, I remember, free Spirit. And it's like, I want to do that. I'll go free you. Even if I have to just move it, fix it up so its wheels will roll, get a little grease, fix up some electronic parts, dust it off, and then move it up to the top of a little hill so it's not so degraded in the gully there. And I mean, back when that thing first launched, the Spirit rover, that was the first major mission that I remember going to Mars. And I remember I would have been pretty young. I was sitting in my parents' living room, and when the news came in that it survived its landing and they said it was bouncing on Mars, I actually jumped up and I hit the ceiling fan's lamp and I broke a light. I was that excited. So that's one thing I would love to go do. And that, I'll do it.
Hi, I have my own slogan. I'd like to open my first sushi bar on Mars. That's my plan. This is
fishies.
I'll explain to you now. It is my scientific goal and my personal goal. Because I need to cultivate fish. Yeah, I need vegetable. I need nori, algae. I need rice. I need vinegar. I need all the ingredients. So that'll be the challenge for me. And I like to entertain my team member by opening a sushi bar. So it's a little bit of comfort for them. So I like to take care of my team by doing that. I think we got
Where were you again now? We just lost the name tag. Gravity. Etiko, I will be the first person in line because I was born in. Yeah, we're gonna fight. Okay, yeah, I'll fight you. I was born in Japan, so I have a very, very strong connection with the sushi bar. I just also want to say is that the combined IQ in this room is higher than pi. So I am very proud. Thank you guys, and thank you, Robert, and Mars Society for letting us speak up here. It's quite an honor to be amongst such fans of Mars like we are. I am a builder, an architect, and designer of habitats, of homes, of buildings, of hotels. And one of the things, I mean, we're talking scientifically, what I'd like to do, I mean, after I hear the click of the hatch of our habitat and the hum of the oxygen generators, and I can take a big sigh of relief. After we know that we're settled in pretty well, I would like to look into utilizing all that crazy Mars dust and creating building materials with it. I'm very interested in a vernacular building methodology like Adobe or whatever, and I think it would be a really nice thing to, you know, at some point in time, this colony is going to need to build permanent homes. We can't live in hats forever. So I think that that's one of the things that I would really like to look into doing, is to create a vernacular architecture for this new culture of Mars. On the fun side, I am also a sketch journalist and an illustrator. And I think part of that new culture, it's not going to be, you know, Americans living on Mars or Russians living on Mars or the Dutch living on Mars. It's going to be a whole new culture. And part of that culture is art and music and writing, and I know Bill writes. I know a lot of us engage in these artistic endeavors, and I think that on the humanity side of a new colony is to be a proponent of the arts. And you know, I have a sketch journal, and I do record my life and the world around me, and I hope to do that on Mars.
Well, scientifically, the geologists, back to science. Geologists have found with the latest Curiosity images and some of the other rovers that Mars has a long geologic history from very early in the solar system history. You can see layers, you know, and the mountains there. And our geologic understanding of the timing of all that is very poor still. So I think my first attempt would be to come up with ages of some of these rock layers and start constructing a lithologic map of the planet and understand the early history of our solar system a lot better. On the fun side, the first thing I would like to see is the blue sunset. That would be my first goal, is to see that. It's pretty remarkable in the images on the rovers. I want to see it in person, take a look around. And another thing is I want to throw a frisbee. I mean, some of us on Facebook tried to figure out if this frisbee would actually fly on Mars or not. It was kind of undetermined, so we need to try it out.
Very nice. I have one comment to throw in, okay? I'm sure you have, you're an architect, but have you actually tried to picture the buildings you could build in 38% gravity?
You wouldn't need a structural engineer to calculate everything that much. I mean, you know, half of our building codes are based on our 1G demon that we have here on this planet. But yeah, it's going to be not only a different culture, it's going to be a whole new set of the rules of physics, I believe. And when we get into habitat and home building, yeah, that'd be a nice part to spearhead on that.
Very good. Does anyone in the audience got any questions? Sir?
Yeah, I mean, something that I've been thinking about for a while is, I don't know, what you've been discussing so far is a bit more personal and practical than what I'm thinking. And I wanted to ask, I mean, how to put it? You're billing.
Yes, we are.
You're billing as representatives of all of humanity. Like everything you do is going to be incredibly symbolic, especially for us. Like 9 billion people are going to be watching. I mean, even when I just think about it, like, you know, it feels really heavy. I mean, you guys, those of you that go will be like the golden record employees. That seems like a really heavy thing, and I don't know, I just feel a little weird when the first thing is someone's been doing on Mars. We have a
Well, if you're talking about whether or not the exploration of Mars is going to be conducted professionally and in accordance with how it needs to be conducted in order to stay alive and be good representatives, that's absolutely going to happen. Being unprofessional on Mars will get us killed.
That's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about not the practical nature of the mission, the symbolic nature of it, what it means to humanity. Like, I guess you could say the conceptual nature of endeavor.
That's not a question for me.
It's something I just want to hear from somebody like you that is thinking about that.
Maybe, can I answer?
Sure.
When I applied for this mission, I already decided I'm going to represent human, the whole species. I like to be at the forefront of humankind, and I want to see how we're going to be involved. So I'm ready to represent that. And it's not going to be heavy because I want to be.
I do completely understand what you're talking about. The very first question that I get when people find out that I have applied for this extraordinary endeavor is, are you out of your effing mind? And it's not just because we're talking about leaving behind everything that anyone ever in the history of humanity has ever known. It's that we're taking this tremendous leap of, I hate calling it a leap of faith, but it sort of is. The first time you try anything, for the first time. And I think that the answer you're looking for is difficult to pin down because each person who applied had a different idea of how they wanted to represent humanity. I think you could ask that question and get 705 individual, stunningly different answers.
And it's more than just the nature of what they want, it's the nature of how it happens.
Question.
Yeah.
I have a simple question to ask. Why did you apply? Why did you apply?
Ready, get on it.
Repeat the question.
The question was, why did you apply? So, when I was a kid, I got my first telescope at 16, and we were out living in the middle of nowhere. The skies were really dark. I think I knocked out the first half of the measure optics in about a month. But the thing that I always looked at the most on a telescope was Mars. It was the closest rocky planet that you could actually see things happening on a backyard telescope. It was very, very fascinating to me. And it looked like, even from a young person's perspective, that you live there, you see ice caps, you see weather, you see changes, whatnot. So early on, I thought I'd like to go there. And when the opportunity came up for regular folks like us to possibly go, I jumped at that chance. I can't imagine not wanting to go. When people ask me why you want to go, I ask them why do you not want to go? I don't understand why they would want to go personally. I think it would be an incredible experience, and I'd love to share that with everyone.
I shared this story on my Mars One community page, but I'd like to repeat it too. I, like a lot of others of us, had moments of epiphany, whether we were 7 years old, like Heidi, or we had an experience or whatever that really made us feel like there's something more out there. I personally, back in '98, I was stuck on a layover on the island of Nauru, which is on the it's like a degree off the equator. And I didn't have any money, and I was stuck, and so I slept on the beach. And I slept on the east-facing beach, and being in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there are no lights. You're in the middle of nowhere. However, for somebody who grew up in a northern latitude, the Milky Way, it was so dense. It was the most incredible thing I have ever seen in my life. And facing east, you could lay there for an hour and watch the whole Milky Way move above you. It was like being in a big spaceship with a huge windshield. And I was struck by the immensity of this galaxy, and being a fan of astronomy and the sciences and nature all my life, I was convinced at that moment that humankind was meant to be interplanetary, if not interstellar. This, boss had the Mars One thing 2 years ago, and I leaped at it. I get a lot of interview questions and saying, how did you decide to go? It's not how I decided. The moment I heard that there were people taking applications, I applied like that. And my first reaction was like, Randy's, who wouldn't go? And that's just, that's why I want to go.
All right, I'll hold this a little closer. So I think I first got interested in space when there was a comet, Hale-Bopp, the little comet. I must have been 3, 4. I actually remember seeing that, looking up in the sky and seeing that. And I think it was my grandmother that told me all about what was going on. And she ended up pointing at Mars. I think it might have been later on, but and telling me that that was an actual place with a solid surface, and we have sent probes to, and they've landed on it. They landed on it by that time. And seeing it that Mars was an actual place was like, it's like a mountain climber standing at the bottom of Mount Everest and having someone tell him that, yeah, it's a very tall mountain, you could probably actually go there, nobody has yet. And it's like, well, that's a challenge accepted. I want to go do that. And also, I want to see mankind progress. All this science fiction and all this fantastic things that people have thought of, and the fact that humans may one day actually achieve goals of that type. And I would love to see that happen. And I think the best way that I could help it along is by applying myself to go to Mars. Even if I didn't get to go to Mars, I want to help it happen. And actual going to Mars on this one-way trip, I remember I was in with my roommates in college, and we were talking about the Nixon speech that President Nixon would have given if the astronauts had never returned, were stuck on the moon. And we were reading over that speech, and I made the comment that, man, if the speech was going to be made like that about me, I wouldn't mind being the person stuck on the moon, And one of my roommates, a couple days later, was on YouTube, and he stumbled across a Mars One video, and he showed it to me, and I was hooked immediately. I went to the website, I studied that until late at night, and I believe just after midnight I sent in an email with a message, I'm in. So, that you go.
A journalist asked Sally Ride right before her big famous trip, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to go? And the truth is, I can't think of a better response to that question than the one that she gave. She said, I don't know. The people that understand can't imagine thinking any other way. They just get it. And then there are people that don't understand, and there's nothing that I or anyone can say to explain it to them. I have found that to be very much the case. I don't imagine there's anyone in here that can't relate. I think it's a question that answers itself.
Going to Mars it's just a part of me. It's something that I've had for so long inside of me that I just knew that one day it was gonna happen. And growing up with that, it's a lot of weight because there was absolutely no way of doing that. And so you walk through life, and every opportunity that I've had, every stepping stone, from going to a college with 1,400 dudes and 100 females to joining the Army to leading soldiers, everything that I've done has been with the intent of using those skills on Mars. And so the fact that Mars One came up when I was 24 years old is just mind-blowing to me, because I definitely thought it was going to be years and years down the road. But I just knew that one day we were going to be given the opportunity to go to Mars. And I feel that strongly that I'm supposed to be part of that.
There's going to be no way to say this that doesn't make it sound like flattery, but the case for Mars is the reason.
Yeah.
I read that book when I was 12. I read that book when I was 12, and I'm not a religious person, but if I had a technical bias towards Mars exploration, it would be that book. This is an audience which I assume is very familiar with that work. We shouldn't have to explain why we want to go to Mars. The reasons are laid out, and they're crystal clear. We have to go because it is the future of humanity. We only have so much time on this planet unless we get to another one, because it has knowledge and answers to questions that we need. All of these answers are equally applicable on the individual level, just as much as they are on the species level. And I think they've already been well enough laid out.
And if I may add my last comment, I'm going to echo what Sonia said. That question gets asked like everyone who ever talks to me about this. Well, why do you want to go? What made you apply? And I've never found an answer. I mean, don't get me wrong. Mankind needs to get off this planet. Something is going to end the human race if we stay here. And that's a good reason to go. It's not my reason. There are lots of good reasons. The technology that's going to benefit mankind right here on Earth, that always has with space exploration, is a great reason to do this. But it's not my reason. Like Sonia said, I've always said that love is a concept. You can talk endlessly, you can write books. I could fill this hotel with books about what love is. If somebody knows it, they'll know the first sentence they read. If somebody doesn't know it, they'll never get it. And that's what this Mars thing has been for me. I don't know why. I can't give a good reason why I want to, except I want to. It just is, and I could go on forever, but it's just, it's there, and seeing Mars One announce their application process for the first time was all it took. I mean, there wasn't even a thought in my head about anything except, okay, what do I have to do to fill out this application?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So, next question, over here.
Each of you must have, at least in an unstated way, decided not to have children on Earth. Do you see that as a burden?
For those who didn't hear the question, what he said was that if we're going to go to Mars, we must have decided not to have children here on Earth. And is that a burden to us? Fair restatement. Before I pass it along, I have children. My youngest right now turns 17 in October. So by the time this mission flies, she'll be 27, 28 years old, moving on with her life. And the kids grew up with internet, and to them, Skyping is just as good as standing, talking to someone face to face. So they don't have a problem with talking to Dad over a 6 to 40 minute delay.
Yeah, okay. You turn it off. All right. So my response is to that, why do we have children? We have children to get our genes and pass them on and that's so funny. It's to continue our legacy. To if you have at least 2 children, you'll have 2 copies of half your DNA, and that'll be it's the closest thing to immortality that we can get. And what better place to have pass your genes on and have children than the next planet that humans are going to be moving to? If I were to have children here on the Earth, I'm trapping them here on Earth. But how cool would it be to have children on Mars, be the next generations of the first humans to be living on another world, or separate from the one that we originated on, and ones that could be around if that original planet was destroyed. I mean, I think that's even closer to being not only immortal for yourself, but the human race in general. That's right. Please say this from me.
I have no children. I never really had an interest in having children. I'm 36 years old. It is not, I was a little unclear as to what you meant by, do you find that to be a burden? I don't find children to be a burden. I think they're wonderful. Tastes like chicken. Children are wonderful. They were just never a part of my life that I really imagined. And it is a convenient thing for me, since I do want to go to another planet. But I don't think that was ever really a factor. There weren't going to be children in my life, with or without Mars.
I'll just tag on not only the children aspect, but I get asked a lot about having a family or having someone to be with, tacking on the making babies question from earlier. For me, at least, everyone wants to put this as a traditional family. You're going to miss out on the traditions that we have here on Earth. But we also now have the opportunity to share our lives very intimately with 3 other people. And it won't be the traditional relationships that you see here on Earth, but we'll have that opportunity to share ourselves, share our emotions and our feelings with 3 other people very intimately for the rest of our lives, in very close proximity to each other. But that will be our new family. So we will ultimately redefine what family means and what relationships mean. And if you can accept that ahead of time, then you can go forward knowing that that's what you're going to get and that's what you can expect. So it makes it all worth it in the end.
I need to pipe in a little bit about this whole sex and space thing. And it's true, we get asked that a lot. However, in the big picture, we do have to think of the big picture. The first group of people and groups of people are just the first step in a bigger plan. By all means, have all the babies you want on Mars, but let's do this in baby steps. Let's set up a good foundation, I feel it'd be too funny. Anyway, but yeah, I think a lot of us do realize that it's really important to do it right. And back to what the gentleman in the red shirt was talking about, how this is a big deal, okay? And on me personally, I don't want to, I hope my team has the wherewithal to not, to take it seriously in that regard, that we're setting the foundation for a very big colony. I don't, I would like to see it grow in 1,000 years. I'm not thinking, my contribution might be 30, 40 years, but I would like to know that what I do in the very beginning is going to set it up for all the babies you want on Mars. with a bigger colony in 1,000 years. It's okay, you know, we're humans. We, you know, we'll do it, but I hope we do it right.
Further answers. This red-headed young lady. Ah.
Okay. All of you wish to be some of the first representatives of the human race on another planet. I'm not worried at this moment about 5 years or 10 years down the road. I'm worried about the first 2 weeks or a month. What skills that do you possess, specifically, in a concise statement, that qualifies you to be the first inhabitants of Mars? Do any of you have skills in triage, hydroponics, or maybe midwives, or maybe doctors, engineers? What do you have to offer?
I'm a fabrication engineer and machinist. I teach fabrication and manufacturing skills at Purdue, and I think general workmanship is going to be essential to keeping the spaceship going.
I think the Army has taught me a lot of those skills that you're talking about as far as triage. I've gotten the extensive combat style training, hands-on. A big thing for me too, so I'm a chemical defense officer. So a lot of what I do is in a mask and in a suit to where everything that is outside of that environment will kill me. And I've been in situations where I've been in a room this big with actual chemicals around me and I didn't freak out. So knowing how I react internally, knowing how I react in those stressful situations, I think will help me get through a lot of the situations we'll see on Mars.
Well, you know, I
can get you elected to Congress.
There we go.
You're out.
We're going to need those.
I'm a negotiator. I'm an intuitive problem solver. And I'm a fast learner. And I figure I've got 8 years to become proficient in all of the wonderful technical and medical skills that I will need. Thank you.
Okay, so in my short time here on Earth, I've picked up a few skills. You know, I've been working as a mechanic for the last few summers. My job has been basically find things that need to be fixing and fix them. And I fixed everything from weed whackers to diesel locomotive, obviously. Not very technical things on the locomotive, but I definitely greased its wheels. But the thing is that when I find something that I didn't know how to fix, my job was to figure out how to fix it. And that seems to be my area of expertise, is picking up new skills. I mean, since I think I was 13, I made a goal of myself to learn a new skill every month. And so far, I've been able to keep it up. I mean, she was talking about hydroponics and what else was she saying? Well,
Midwifing.
Midwifing.
I have birthed animals.
There we go. We got it.
But yeah, like I've been experimenting with hydroponics. I kept bees. So many things I can't even bring them up. But I think that's one of what I bring to the table is the ability to figure out new skills. Like, we're going to be trained for the next 10 years with everything we're going to need to go to Mars. And it's going to be nice to have somebody that's going to be able to pick up those skills and do them well. And yeah, I forget what else I was going to say. All right, so I'll let you have it.
I think there are two skills you need to have. One is soft skills, and other is hard skill. What I call soft skill is personality and characteristics. If you go to the Mars One webpage, there is characteristics that Mars One looking for, and I'm sure all of us checked that website and decided to apply for that. As Bas explained in his presentation, you can train somebody hard skill, but you cannot train people to change their personality. So I believe that my personality have all the characteristics that I can survive on Mars. And I expect that next 8 years, I will learn the hard skills that necessary to repair the water extraction machine, all that stuff.
Boy, you know, that's a loaded question. What skills do I have this moment if I were to magically transport myself to Mars? Well, I think my problem solving, I have a lot of patience, and I have a lot of fortitude. Other skills I can learn. It was brought up that we have 8 years to learn more skills than we already have. But I think that, again, right now, as of now, I think that the best skill to have is the ability to stay calm.
Carry on.
There you go.
Well, I think Atsuko's right. I think all of us up here have all those list of skills that Mars one's looking for. The resilience, adaptability, curiosity, trust, those sorts of things. You know, personally, I feel like, just like Bill says, we have to have a mechanic. I think we're going to have a geologist. There are going to be resources that have to be assessed and utilized. I have a background in chemistry. I have a background in water contamination remediation. I could help purify the water system, look for resources, utilize the resources. I've done mine planning, mining engineering, all those sorts of things. So I think I have a pretty good skill set now that I can build on from here.
I have a question in relation to the man in red in the back who asked about this is a serious mission. I think that indeed it is very serious, but it's also the rest of your life. So it's not just going to be serious, it's also going to be fun. So I would like to ask you guys, what's the craziest thing you would do on Mars?
All right. So, I went to a military school, and so my freshman year, we were called rats, and we were hated severely, and we weren't allowed to leave. So there was a lot of us in a room, and my favorite thing that we used to do is we had a lot of different uniforms. So we'd pull out every single piece of uniform we could. We made capes, we made every hat you can imagine, and we threw it all together, and we cranked up the music, and we pulled out glow lights, and we just danced. So I think just doing crazy stuff like that where the tension's maybe getting higher, or you've had a long day working and just letting it all loose and nothing cares, and maybe you turn the cameras off and you just have fun. So I definitely think that's something that's going to be going down on Mars.
Rave on Mars.
There you go.
Mars has such a history of sci-fi behind it. The degree of the number of stories that have already been told about Mars and have already taken place on Mars. I would like to embody that history to some extent. For example, maybe the first broadcast of the War of the Worlds from Mars. I've been told I can do an okay Orson Welles impersonation. So I would like to live in that environment of self-referential, fictitious history, if that makes any sense. Kind of ironically embracing the traditions which have come to exist on Mars in the realm of fiction.
If I can just introduce the astronauts on the moon, they danced, they played golf, they raced the car. Don't forget that they were also having fun. And are you glad, Gary? They're not talking about sand angels yet.
Oh no. Regular thing.
I definitely want to ride a rover.
Yeah. Backwards.
That's backwards.
Stick that on.
Yep. That's all I got.
Although mariners can have them, I thought.
Well, first of all, what's crazier than going to Mars in the first place? I've been asked questions before, like what is the craziest thing you've done, and There's a few things, but one of the things that most pertains to this is I've quoted myself as putting my hand inside of a vacuum jar, strapping my wrist in real good, and sucking out some of the air to see what it'd be like to take my glove off in space. And I would love to actually touch the planet, you know, feel the regolith in my hands, do something that no one's ever done. And by the way, the results of my experiment was that it would probably be possible.
Oh.
As long as it's for a short time.
Were you actually touching something though?
Well,
that's kind of important.
I had my pressure gauge in my hand, so.
And was your pressure gauge minus 65 Celsius?
No, I wasn't physical.
Kind of a big factor.
I haven't touched dry ice though. Anyway, actually the worst part of that was actually the fact that my knuckles were being pressed against the bottom of the chamber from the force of it. But I don't think that would be an issue if you were, well, there's nothing to push against. All right, go ahead, you.
I think we should form a band. I know someone's got to play something, right? You know, Cole with the rubber band on it. I'll bring a guitar. And someone's got to have a harmonica.
That's funny you say that because one of the things I always wanted to do, and never did, was learn how to play the violin and the fiddle. And as soon as I signed up for Mars One, I started learning. I'm going to take my fiddle to Mars.
And I believe, I'm sorry to say, the time is up. I'm very interested to see what the debate holds in store after hearing from all of these. Thank you very much for letting us come say hi to you.